the legend's back. Jeff, Sports with Warbs, doing a lot of good shit in Halifax right now. Jeff, man, Oilers chat. I mean, hey, people are watching right now. You got the Oilers in the background. You're repping the jersey. I guess, yeah, how are you feeling? I've put some confidence in the Oilers. Obviously, they made some moves going into the deadline. Yeah, we can start specifically on the Kings series, but just overall, how are you feeling the Oilers going into the playoffs?
Feeling good about it, man. I mean, it's kind of like I feel like we're kind of in the same spot as maybe Toronto and Boston, where once we got our feet under us in the regular season, it was kind of just, playoffs is all you got your mind on, right? But I mean, I wouldn't be lying to go whatever it was, like 18, 2-1 in the last 21 games of the season. I mean, it's fantastic go because, there was worries. We had a run there. We had some overtime losses, but they really turned it around for us and gave us quite the season to remember. It's been a good couple of weeks to be an Oilers fan, but the nerves are slowly kicking up. This is what it's all about. The window of Draisaitl and McDavid on their current contracts is at in like 3 more years, I believe. So, I don't know. I'm not one to jinx things, so let's just get into it, I guess.
No, I could tell. Yeah, I could tell you're being careful. As the non-Oilers fan here, I'll say this, and I think so. I would say for a lot of teams, but obviously the Leafs is. I talk a lot about the Leafs. The one guy that I said was going to be a huge playoff boost was Matthias Ekholm for any team that was going to acquire him, and I do truly look at the Oilers and kind of saying off air to you is obviously there's the concerns in goaltending in terms of so Stuart Skinner, who's played well this year, doesn't have that playoff experience. And for a guy like Jack Campbell, who kind of got a lick of it last year, hasn't had a great year. So I think from my perspective, the defense has really been solidified since Ekholm. And obviously Ekholm, Bouchard, I know you've been a big I'd say like fan of Bouchard and just talking him up. And obviously Nurse and Cece has kind of been a pair for a while now. So you're in your mind, I guess, just looking at that perspective, because I feel like the easiest thing we can talk about, Jeff, is like we could talk about the offense all day long. I think any Oilers show, any hockey show, if you look at the Oilers, we talk about McDavid, Draisaitl offense, and I don't want to say that's like lazy, but it's like
Uh-huh.
we could talk about that all day long. So in terms of the defense goaltending, I guess let's focus on that, because I feel like if there's going to be a downfall of the Oilers, um, goaltending maybe, and then of course like maybe we still look at the defense as not enough. I don't know, like where do you look at that, because just obviously that's a perspective that wins you rounds and obviously a cup.
Definitely. And so have you watched a lot of the Oilers down here the past like few weeks, kind of since they've had their set playoff roster kind of getting some games in? Have you gotten a good
Yeah,
look at
so
those guys?
I watched a bit of the Kings game. They won 2-1 that one.
Mhm.
I watched by like honestly, man, I watched like because I was just excited. Like not even being an Oilers
Yeah.
fan, I was just excited when they got Ekholm. I watched probably the first 3 or 4 games when Ekholm arrived.
Okay.
Probably about 5, 6 games I haven't watched as much, but the Kings game I watched because as we're talking now, I figured it was going to be the playoff series. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll say this, Jeff, before you answer that. When we were recording the pod fresh after the trade deadline, and then even there was the scenario there where like the Oilers were still like 8 points back, I want to say, of Vegas.
Oh
And I
yeah.
made the hot take of saying the Oilers were going to finish first in the division still at that point. And I was close, man.
Oh, we were so
Last night,
close.
people were chirping me for that hot take, but I was so close for that.
People were
But yeah, just
chirping you
your
for
thoughts
that?
on it.
Yeah, that is funny. So in terms of the defense, here's the question that me and my uncle were kind of talking over last night. So rolling into the playoffs, what we're kind of used to right now is the 11-7 formation, right? This is always this discussion around the Oilers. So let's just go under the assumption that we're going to do 11-7 and they're going to rotate Draisaitl and McDavid on that fourth line.
Yeah.
And like the player, like you said, the offense has been phenomenal. So, having Bugstad as your fourth liner is, I mean, it doesn't get much better in terms of depth, I don't think, on forward. So let's say we're going to go with 7D dressed in the playoffs, or at least thinking of D in my mind. To win a cup, you need to have at least 7, preferably 8, either veteran or very like proven in their ways where they've played a
Yeah,
full
basically 8
season.
guys that can step in
8
at any time.
guys that can play an NHL playoff game where you're not just throwing them to the wolves, essentially.
Yeah.
So we got Nurse CC, then we get Ekholm, Bouchard. So that's easy top 4 right there. We can go into the intricacies of that in a moment. But then just to finish it off, that bottom pair, it's Kulak, Vinny Desharnais, Broberg as the three that are cycling on that bottom pair. So Vinny Desharnais has been good. I mean, he's a guy that just a big guy from Quebec who took a while to get to the NHL, but he was like a 5th-round pick from the Oilers, and he just stuck it out. And he was injured to start the year, but the coaches really liked him out of training camp. They had to wait to bring him up. They brought him up.
Yeah.
He replaced CC the other day when he went home to have the kid. He played over 20 minutes for the first time in his career. He looked phenomenal. So I think having those three guys, so you can either dress them or you scratch, or you scratch one of them and you cycle them in through the playoffs, barring no injuries, knock on wood.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we sit with the defense. And in terms of those top 2 defensive lines, they're, the big thing that everyone keeps saying is Darnell Nurse, you've said it probably a million times. He used to try to do too much. He felt like he had this big contract. He needed to do everything. He was the only marquee defender on the Oilers at that point, because I wouldn't consider, as much as Barry's good offensively, I wouldn't say he was like a number 1 or 2 guy necessarily. He's more of like a second line or good second line D-man. So anyway, so him coming in and not having to log 24 minutes a game and having Ekholm bring that offensive side, plus he's just bringing Bouchard along with him.
Ekholm's such a beast, man. He's such a beast.
He's just such a beast in the sense that, like, it's not even like he's just a great player. Like, he passes the eye test easily, but his presence affects the rest of the D in a positive way. And I don't really know how many like teams and like players, especially at the deadline, that were brought in that could cause such a big positive domino effect. Because now Nurse hasn't played over 23 minutes. I think he's only done it 3 times since Ekholm got here, like 16 games ago or whatever, however long it was, maybe even longer. So he's gone down in his minutes. He's playing strong. He just passed his highest point total. Ekholm's obviously, plus like 17 or something. Bouchard's point per game. So he really pulled that defense together. So when I look at the Oilers, to answer your question, I'm not as worried about the defense if things stand pat. It really, in my mind, comes down to just the goaltending. I think that's what it is. That's the difference this year.
Yeah, and I think we're at a point where we're feeling a little bit better versus like the Koskinen and Smith days.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say. Not to say that bar is too tough.
Maybe. I mean, I don't even know if I'm feeling that much better about it, man. I Smith was very good going into the playoffs last year. He definitely was good, aside from the goal from from the other end of the ice that, thankfully didn't come back to bite us. But this year you're going in with a rookie goaltender, and you're going in with a guy who's had has struggled in his first year in a team, but to your point, has some sort of like positive playoff experience. I know they lost in the rounds, but was Campbell really a big problem for you last year against Tampa? Because I thought I heard on a podcast that in that game 7, he at least gave you guys like a chance to win. Did he have any real stinker games for the Leafs or what?
So not stinker game. The game where Tampa, I don't know if they scored 6 or 7, but it was 6 or 7. And I'd probably, contribute like 3 or 4 goals. Like Campbell could have been better. But outside of that one game, I go back to the Montreal series, if anything, and he allowed a couple weak goals later in the series that like made the difference on Montreal coming back in the series, especially the Gallagher goal in game 7. So that would be my only concern for Campbell, is just when he gets going, he gets going. But I think, as Oilers fans have seen this year, is all it takes is for him to allow a couple goals, and he just gets so hard on himself, and he just goes through these like lags. So my thing with Campbell, and it comes back to the Stuart Skinner conversation, is maybe if they do go to Stuart Skinner and Campbell has less pressure on himself, and it does come to a point where Campbell has to go in, maybe it's a fresh start for him, and maybe he can contribute in that way. But on your point of what you said about Mike Smith, I'll also say, Jeff, I think when you had just Mike Smith, I don't think the Oilers at the point of like last year or the year before, it's like, if you had to go to Koskinen, that was just a really uncomfortable situation. And you know what? Maybe some Oilers fans feel that from like Skinner to Campbell. But as we just said, Campbell, we've seen it from him. And he's not looked great at times, but I think there's a lot worse scenarios in the league than going, at least in my opinion, from Skinner to Campbell versus like a lot. There's a lot of other teams in the league that are like, look at Winnipeg right now. Winnipeg is Hellebuck or bust. Yeah. If Hellebuck doesn't work out, they're screwed. So that's why I'm saying we're a little bit with Edmonton. Is like, And I've been talking about this a lot on the podcast, is like, go to some of the cup winners, like Pittsburgh when they had to flip to a different goalie, or Washington when they had to go from Grubauer to Holtby. I mean, I keep repeating myself and saying this, but it's like, it happens and teams still go on and to win a cup. So I think the
Yeah.
fact that the Oilers have those two options, hopefully one of them work out, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're just basically saying it's like it's not a terrible plan, but it's only the plan. Skinner has played well enough where it's only the plan where it's like break glass in case of emergency type thing where we call in Campbell to start, I believe. That's the impression I'm under. But to your point, there could be worse backup options, like you know what I mean? I guess this year. Like, so you're right. That's kind of the way it is. And like rookie goalies have done well in the playoffs before. Recent memory, Binnington and Matt Murray, right? They kind of were inexperienced, went in and managed to somehow win a cup. So, you know, if I'm looking at the Oilers right now heading into the playoffs, I couldn't be happier with how they're playing. The offense, I have confidence they could win a cup. The defense, I have confidence that they have what it takes to win a cup. The goaltending, I'm just not there yet on it. So that's really the biggest question for the Oilers. It just comes down to if they can keep playing to the level they've been playing recently. Everything, the wheels can fall off really easily. We've seen it, but if that all goes well.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we get specified into like the matchup against the Kings, what's a path that I know we discussed this last year in the other scenario? And honestly, Jeff, I actually looked back at that video. It's like what we talked about is exactly what ended up happening. Basically, is like the Oilers being in a tough series against the Kings, and then you had the confidence to beat them beating the Flames. I don't think either of us thought they were going to beat the Flames like that last year, but they beat the Flames. And then I think both of us were like, okay, they're going to have it in tough against Colorado. So exactly what we talked about ended up happening. So I'll throw it right back at you again before we go into the matchup specifically. For the Oilers to win the cup, what path do you see like needing to happen? And like, is Colorado still a concern for you, or is like any other team maybe on that central side, like you could see a path here for the Edmonton Oilers to get to the final?
I think
what do you want to see, I guess?
What do I want to see? So that comes down to the age-old question. Do you want to beat the best to get to the finals, or do you want the easiest path? You know what I mean? I think
go.
I was just gonna say I believe that that the first two rounds, I don't see the Oilers sweeping anyone. It's just not in our nature, man. It's just like the Leafs. It's just not in the nature for the Oilers. We've been a team that's gotten swept in the past 25 years. So I'm not going to make that prediction, but I could see that conference final repeating itself, obviously, this year. And I could see us being able to get wins over Colorado that we would not have gotten last year.
Yeah, if the Oilers do beat LA and get to that second round, so they repeat what they did last year, I think with the Golden Knights, obviously on paper, I'm probably still taking the Oilers offense. When you have McDavid and Draisaitl, that's just the scenario we're going to talk about. But I think Vegas has a lot of good defensive forwards. So my thing is, going back to that goalie conversation, I would be, in an Oilers perspective, I would be very nervous going up against a Vegas for the scenario of, I think Vegas's defense, a lot more experience. I mean, you have like cup pedigree on that defense versus Edmonton. Like, look at Vegas's defense, Jeff. I mean, Pietrangelo has won a cup. Martinez has won a cup. I mean, those guys have been on runs as well. And
they've seen a conference final, and they do not want to let themselves lose 4 games in any series. And I think they have the confidence in themselves this year, which I don't think was there ever really before until last year at the very end.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the last thing I'll say is they were going over some of the teams going into the playoffs. I think the 4 teams I outlined, I don't know if it was NHL or it was some network, and basically just said, between the Oilers, Golden Knights, Avalanche, and Stars, like these are like the most hot, like 4 solid teams in a conference have been. And like Edmonton's they've only lost a couple games in the last like 10, right? Or something like that.
More than that, dude. They're like 18-2-1 in their last, and they're like 28-7-2 since the trade deadline sort of stuff.
Yeah, in Colorado, I'm pretty sure, again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure they were riding like a 6-game win streak until that loss against Edmonton. So
yeah,
some of these teams are really hot right now. Obviously, Edmonton's right up there for the league. Yeah, man. I mean, if there's one thing that I talk about, and I've seen it time and time again, is don't like overlook the fact that yes, the Oilers are very good and they should be a cup contender as it is, but don't overlook the fact that like those season games, regardless of the fact the Oilers were in or not, those games mattered big time to them. They had the chance to get the top division spot. And now I think if anything, the fact that they didn't and they're facing LA again, the Oilers have so much incentive and so much on the line here. Yeah, like I said, I think if they beat the Kings, man, I think I'm very confident they're going to go far.
All right, man. Well, we'll see.
All right, Jeff, give it a little promo on the way out here.
Yeah.
What are you doing these days?
Check out High Button Sports on YouTube and Instagram, especially if you live in Atlantic Canada. If not, check it out anyway. Appreciate it. The company I work for and have a big hand in. So that's where I'm at. And the High Button podcast, we had McKinnon on last summer, and we got a couple big guests hopefully coming up this summer. Let's see.
Yeah, there you go, man. And yeah, who knows? Maybe you'll get the Oilers versus the Avalanche, a little Halifax represent there, and then maybe you'll get an Oilers versus Bruins Cup final to get a little Halifax represent with Mr. Marchie
yes,
there.
Sir. I'm going down to Boston for work, I think, right around the conference finals. So go Bruins.
Jeez, man. Honestly, I'll just say this again. I'm not just saying this to pump the Oilers fans' tires, but I think if there was a cup final this year of Oilers Bruins, I think that could be an all-timer. I actually had we had Daily Intermission on, he has a big social presence.
Yeah, I know him. I followed him for a long time.
Yeah. So he's a big Bruins guy, and yeah, we were just shooting the shit on what the Oilers could do this year, and obviously just the Bruins and what they've done. If the Bruins can get past that President's Trophy curse, I honestly, man, for folks, if you want to win some money, predicting the Bruins Oilers the cup final would not be a bad bet. Yeah,
you definitely have an exciting first couple of rounds if that's what you're hoping for. You're going to watch some big games either way. So
100%. All right, well, guys, we'll follow Jeff, whatever he's doing, High Button and all that good stuff. And yeah, subscribe to this channel, like, notification bell, and yeah, here's to sorry Kings fans. Hey, I'm down for the Kings to do well, but we got the Oilers fan on right now, so hey, I never have a bad time with Jeff, and if he comes back for the second round, I think we'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and no hate, Kings fans. You guys got a good team. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Jeff.
See ya.